Think when she, a ageless, chose to design, bear forbidden a son's seed. The birth of a daughter calculated, controlled, a tool for their ageless design. Instead, Jessica defied the codicil. A single act, a forbidden seed, the cost, a lineage unshackled, a power unplanned, the birth of a god-king. What warred in her silence, duty or dread, the Order's chains or the Fremen's storm? Her choice rippled beyond flesh, beyond prophecy. A son was not a mistake, it was an earthquake. The Bene Gesserit's plan stretched millennia. A daughter from Atreides' blood was their cipher. Jessica's defiance fractured their design. Paul's rise as a god-king was not their script. The golden path crumbled, the Imperium's balance teetered. A female heir's dormant power unplanned, unshaped no lurked in the storm. What if the true Kwisatz Haderach was never born? What if the plan's architects became pawns? Jessica's choice did not just shift fate, it buried it, the cost. A universe held hostage by a single, forbidden lineage. The storm does not end with Paul. It only begins, 88 words. The Bene Gesserit bred the Atreides for 10,000 years, a sisterhood of architects weaving a god from genetics. Lady Jessica, their most willing thread, bound to Duke Leto by politics and prophecy. Her womb was a vault. Her loyalties a paradox. To bear a son was obedience, to bear a daughter was heresy. Paul's birth was a rebellion, a calculated fracture. The Bene Gesserit sought a male Kwisatz Haderach, a bridge between sexes. Jessica gave them a spark that became a conflagration. But what if their calculus missed a variable? A queen, not a messiah, a lineage unshackled from their design. The Order's archives whisper of a contingency. A protocol buried deeper than the spice mines. They feared not just Paul's rise but the shadow of a sister who might outshine even a god. Did Jessica's defiance plant a seed they could not foresee? The Imperium's collapse was written in her blood. The water of life, a substance fatal to males until Paul survived, reshaped destiny. Frank Herbert wrote, Paul Atreides drank the water of life and lived. The Kwisatz Haderach was born. Before him the ritual killed, a test, a gate, a weapon. The Bene Gesserit's centuries-old plan demanded a female heir-breeding protocols etched in blood and silence. A daughter to wield the Emperor's power, not a boy. Jessica's defiance, a single act of theft, fractured their design. Paul's survival proved him both anomaly and weapon. The water's lethal truth exposed. Males who drank became ash, but Paul became a god. Did the Bene Gesserit foresee this, or did they fear what Jessica's womb might yield? A son who defied death, a son who walked the desert's bones, Fremen and Führer, Fecundator and Fury. The plan's architects never imagined a male could wield the water's fire. They bred for control. Paul became chaos. The cost of Jessica's choice, a son who burned their schemes to dust. The water of life, once a barrier, became a crucible. Paul emerged unscathed. The rest of the universe did not. Jessica's defiance did not end with Paul. The water of life, once ingested, rewrote her body's purpose. A daughter followed, born with the spice in her veins, a preborn weapon the Bene Gesserit never sought. Alias mind, unshaped by their designs, became a storm. What did the desert demand when offered a queen instead of a king? The Bene Gesserit bred for control, not chaos. A sisterhood that shattered its own rules invited ruin. Aelia, gifted with prescience, saw too much. She burned the Harkonnen flesh from her mother's womb, yet could not purge the poison already in her blood. The same spice that made her a prophet bound her to a fate darker than death. When the Harkonnens claimed her, they did not break her, they completed it. Her body, a temple defiled, became a vessel for the Baron's rot. Did she weep as her own voice whispered madness, as her hands turned on her house? The blade she drove into her throat was not an end. It was a requiem for a child who should never have lived. Jessica's choice birthed a god. Then watched it wither. The Bene Gesserit feared Paul's rise, but Alias' existence proved a truth colder. Some legacies are not built. They are accidents screaming in the sand, waiting to be buried. Jessica's death was no accident. The sand closed over her like a benediction, a final act of defiance against the breeding charts that sought to cage her. Villeneuve's blade cut sharp. Paul did not inherit a throne, he inherited a womb, a scream. A desert's breath thick with spice and blood, as Jessica's last agony fused with his first ascension. What do you make of a god born not from war, but from the rupture of a mother's body? The Bene Gesserit miscalculated. They shaped Jessica into a vessel, a conduit for House Atreides' survival. But survival is not legacy. Paul's eyes, once human, now held the weight of 1,000 stillsuits. The Fremen knelt not to a prince, but to the ghost of a woman who defied them. The Sayyida's new reverend mother wore Jessica's name like a second skin. Paul's voice, laced with the ichor of prescience, became both scripture and sword. The Bene Gesserit bred for control. They reaped a storm. A male heir was a pawn, a female heir. A question left unanswered in the sand, but Jessica's choice was never about what she gave. It was about what she took back. The desert does not forget, it buries, it remembers. Paul's divinity was not a coup, it was a covenant. A pact sealed in the death throes of a mother who became her son's first martyr. The Bene Gesserit's webs frayed, their centuries of design unraveled. Because power is not a line drawn on a map, it is a wound, a scar. A god-king rising where a woman's breath once shook the dunes. But here lies the fracture. The premise bends the texts, the Bene Gesserit's dread of a female heir. A shadow cast by this tale, not the canon's light. Jessica's defiance was not a bid to birth a sister king. Her choice cracked the breeding plans. Sheliot the egg hatched a boy. Paul, the god king, the cost. A lineage rerouted, the hidden price, a son's ascent, not a daughter's, the order's true fear. A male Atreides with the spice-forged will to burn stars. This video's claim a what-if. A mirror held to the text, but the books breathe no such terror. Only Paul's name haunts their pages. So ask, when Jessica reached for daughter, did she grasp not what she wanted but what the universe could not bear? The answer bleeds in the sand, a king's shadow, a mother's regret. And the whisper of a daughter never born. The Bene Gesserit's plan was a tapestry woven in blood over centuries. Jessica's choice was not a deviation. It was the catalyst. The breeding protocols demanded a son to fulfill their design. She gave them a daughter instead, not through rebellion but through survival. The cost of her defiance was measured in billions lost to Paul's jihad. His ascension to godhood was the plan's nightmare given form. The jihad that followed was not his design, but its fuel was drawn from the same well of ancient schemes. Alias possession was the plan's final Irania daughter's power twisted into a prison. The Bene Gesserit had spent centuries engineering a son. They shaped the Atreides bloodline to birth a male messiah. Jessica's act, born of desperation, fractured their calculations. Paul's Fremen following, his spice-fueled dominion, all were unintended echoes of a single transgression. The sisterhood's fear was not of a female heir, it was of a future they could not control. Their plan had always required a son. What it could not foresee was the shadow of a daughter. The threads are bound, the reckoning is sand in the gears. What does a mother's defiance unravel when the universe demands obedience? The answer is written in ash. Jessica's defiance did not crown a queen, it anointed a god-king. Paul's Fremen jihad carved 60 billion names into oblivion. The Bene Gesserit feared not a daughter's rise, but the monster their own designs could not contain. A son, not a sister, became the storm. Her choice fractured the careful calculus of centuries. The sisterhood's breeding program sought balance. Jessica's womb, a vessel of rebellion, delivered a prophet instead. Paul's ascension was no accident. It was the shadow of her rebellion stretched across a galaxy. The jihad's flames were not his macking, yet they burned with her blood. What did the Bene Gesserit truly dread? Not a female heir would have obeyed. A god-king birthed from a mother's hunger for autonomy could not. He reshaped stars into weapons, dunes into graves. The cost of one woman's refusal to be a pawn, empires sundered, civilizations erased. The sand remembers. It whispers of Jessica's grief, a single mother's hope that became a weapon of gods. Did she foresee the storm? Or was she merely the match in a fire the Bene Gesserit could never fully extinguish? The universe demands obedience, but some rebellions outlast their architects. Jessica's defiance was a whisper in the stillness of a spice windsubtle, inevitable. The Bene Gesserit bred for centuries to shape a Kwisatz Haderach, yet her choice fractured their design. Blood on the sands, a stillsuit's weight, the taste of betrayal, a thread in a tapestry they could not unravel. Did she ignite a chain that even the would later harness? Leto Roman II, with his sand trout in the womb, became both weapon and answer. A girl's path, uncharted, became the key to a symbiosis that bound flesh to desert itself. Was her rebellion the spark, or merely the lens through which their own design refracted? The desert does not forgive, but it remembers. What does it whisper to those who dare to breed with the stars? The desert's breath carries a name, Jessica, a choice torn from protocol. What did the Bene Gesserit see in the sand's pulse before Leto's birth? A symbiosis coiled in his blood, a path not walked but preborn, the cost. A god's shadow